Welcome everybody to our first ever bonus episode. This is really exciting. So it is called 9 3/4 because it is 3/4 of the way between episodes 9 and 10. And also, like the barrier at King's Cross Station, you can't see it coming.
Love it. And we're so excited to start off this bonus episode series with 9 3/4 because it was a perfect way. And from now on, whenever we do bonus episodes, it'd be the number of the previous episode and 3/4 just because that's how funny we are.
And also, we've decided that the topic for this episode is going to be the Weasleys because we just had an episode about the Burrow, and our bonus episodes are also meant to complement the previous episodes. And whenever we want, we can do random bonus episodes.
Yeah, totally. So get ready to listen to me and Jess rank the Weasleys.
Let's get into it. We're going to talk about each of the Weasleys in turn and what we like and dislike about them. And at the end, you will hear our rankings from our numbers 1 through 9 of the Weasleys.
So, of course, we are going to start off with Arthur. So, Jess, what are some of your favorite things about Arthur?
What I really like about Arthur is that he's a great dad. Yes, he works a lot, but he tries really hard to be around for his kids, and that's super important.
Yeah, and going off of what you said about working a lot, like, he does everything he can to provide for his family, and even when Harry kind of starts becoming part of the family, Arthur provides for him the same way he does his other children.
Also, I love his obsession with muggles. I think it's really awesome that he sees the best in people, even the non-magical community, and tries really hard to understand them, even though he messes up a lot.
Yeah, I agree. That just shows how accepting he is as a person in general, and that's definitely a pro for anybody. You should always be accepting of people who are different than you, and you should always be open and understanding. So, shout out to Arthur for being that incredible role model.
Another thing that I really like about Arthur is that he's nice to people even if they're rude to him. So he is nice to the Dursleys even though he knows that they're not very nice to Harry. And he offers to clean up their living room in the 4th book after he destroys it. And he also helps fix Dudley's tongue.
Yeah, so we have so many amazing things to say about Arthur. Is there any bad things to say about him? Like things we don't like?
No, I don't think so.
Me neither. I mean, he does have his imperfections as well as like all the other characters, and I feel like that's very important because nobody wants a perfect character because there aren't perfect people. So I feel like the mistakes that he makes and his kind of not being as in tune to the Muggle world as maybe he should be isn't necessarily seen as a bad thing because he is growing and learning just like anybody else.
Yeah, and I don't see his temper being a bad thing either because he had a right to yell at Fred and George for trying to make Ron do the unbreakable vow. And he also had the right to fight Lucius Malfoy in Diagon Alley because, I mean, let's face it, the guy just eggs everybody on and he's really rude. So I wouldn't fault him for that either.
No, me neither. So, win for Arthur Weasley. We love Arthur.
Next, we're going to talk about Molly. I love Molly.
She is fantastic. First of all, an amazing mother to her kids and also to Harry. She is the mother that he didn't get to have, and she is fantastic. She's amazing at cooking, and she does have a bit of a temper, but I completely agree with the times where she gets frustrated because she wants the best for her children. And especially in the later books when she's very concerned about the trio, she has every right to know what they're up to. So she is just your classic perfect mom. And also, she kills Bellatrix, which, shout out to her.
Agreed. The only thing I would say that kind of irks me a little bit about her is that she wasn't very supportive of Fred and George's joke shop in the beginning, because she really wanted them to have a successful career, and she thought that the only way to do so is to work at the ministry. She wasn't very open-minded, thinking that, hey, my sons are pretty talented, maybe they'll make a lot of money at this shop. And they did. I really see this as a mom thing, though, because as a mom, you tend to think about careers that your kids should be in because those are the careers you know make a lot of money. And so when your kid says something outlandish like, hey, I want to be part of a joke shop, you kind of think, okay, that's, not realistic because you don't know anything about business or finances. So that makes sense. But at the same time, when I was younger and I read these books, I was like, oh, what are you doing, Molly? Like, you're crushing their dreams.
And I feel like that's a theme that we see with other characters too, like Neville, because his grandmother wanted him to grow up to be an R like his dad. And like, it's not easy growing up with a parent's or guardian's pressure on you to be what they want you to be. And that kind of really holds somebody back from exploring their interests and finding what they truly are passionate about. So yeah, I agree with you that this is something about Molly that kind of isn't a big high five for me.
Yeah, I mean, and also as a mom, you're trying to prevent your kids from going into danger. So it's also kind of annoying in the 7th book that the trio can't get any planning done before they leave because Molly is keeping them from doing that, which makes sense in her perspective because she doesn't want them to get in danger. But at the same time, if they had more time to plan, maybe they wouldn't have wasted so much time kind of piddling around and hiding and not getting the Horcruxes.
Yeah, and also one more thing to say about that is like they're 17 at that point, and it also kind of brings up the point that parents are reluctant to let their kids go once they reach adulthood. And I think Molly being worried about the trio, despite them being 17, really shows her resistance to letting them go and letting them be adults and doing what needs to be done.
Let's move on to the oldest Weasley, Bill. So for me, what I really like about Bill is that he's cool. Right? He's got the earring in, he's got long hair, he's handsome. He's like the cool older brother that like you wish you had. So I like that about Bill. I also like how he's very kind to Harry and just very older brotherly, if that makes any sense. So he's very protective of Harry, when they come back to Shell Cottage, and he's very understanding when they bury Dobby. He's just a really awesome older brother figure, so that's what I really like about Bill. And also, shout out to him for getting the prettiest wife there ever was, because she's really pretty.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up Fleur, and something else I like about Bill is the fact that he fell for Fleur. Maybe his family didn't like her that much, but he didn't let that get in the way of their relationship. So I like how Bill is the kind of person to know what he wants and goes after what he wants no matter what other people think.
I agree, and I think that really shows when you talk about his appearance because, he doesn't care what other people think. He just does whatever he wants. Also, his job is really cool. I'd love to be a curse breaker. And he got to go to Egypt. That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. I'm trying to think of cons for Bill. We don't see him enough to kind of get a deeper sense of who he is as a person. But yeah, I don't really have any major things that stand out to me that I don't like about him.
Yeah, I guess I would say that my only complaint is that we don't see him more, right? Because like Charlie, he is always gone. So I kind of wish we had more time with him.
I really like how we get to spend more time with him in Deathly Hallows at Shell Cottage because a lot of his true colors come out during that part.
I also would be remiss if I didn't talk about the scratches on his face. So I think that it's awesome that he bounced back from this. He didn't show us any sign of fear when he woke up from it, and he seemed perfectly fine. So he's really resilient, which is another thing I like about him.
Shout out to Bill Weasley. We love you. Now, let's talk about Charlie, who is definitely not in the books enough. I love Charlie. He's awesome that he works with the dragons in Romania. And also, we see him in Goblet of Fire when he's there with the dragons during the Triwizard Tournament and everything. And I just love his whole aura about him. He seems like he's such a fun, optimistic person. And we see that in a lot of the Weasleys, but I feel like with Charlie, in the little moments that we do see him, he's always had a positive attitude.
He's also very laid back. He's cool with whatever happens, which is a good trait to have. And the fact that he's friends with Hagrid just makes me really happy because he understands Hagrid a lot more than I think some of the other characters do, because Charlie also is obsessed with magical creatures. Plus, the fact that Charlie saved Hagrid's butt when he stole a dragon egg is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that really just shows how laid back he is. Like when Ron sent him that letter to come get Norbert, Charlie was like, oh, it's all chill. Like, me and some of my buddies are coming. We'll pick him up at the highest tower. Like, he wasn't mad about it. He was all, like, game. So, yeah, he's super laid back, super chill. And, yeah, I really like his connection with Hagrid, too, because we don't see that a lot with the other characters. And, yeah, I love Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, he's the only one aside from the Golden Trio that is really friendly with Hagrid. I mean, and let's face it though, Hagrid's been at Hogwarts for a really long time. The fact that more students aren't flocking to his hut and talking to him, I've never understood that. Like, who doesn't want to talk to Hagrid?
Yeah, but it's just the whole thing that he's a half giant, and being a half giant in the wizarding world, like, he faces, discrimination because of his race. And it's nice to see Charlie being one of the people who is so accepting of him.
Like Bill, we don't have any bad things to say about Charlie because he's not in the books enough to really judge his character more. So let's move on to Percy. Now, I have a lot of beef with Percy. I'm not gonna lie, he's not really my favorite Weasley. I like that he's smart. I like that he cares about his work in school and at his job. I like that he puts 110% into everything he does and really is serious about his responsibilities. He doesn't shirk them, which is awesome to have in a character.
Yeah, he is very ambitious, and we do see like that he is proud of his accomplishments, being prefect, head boy, working at the ministry. Like, he looks up to his boss a lot, and he just is a very proud person. And I don't really think that's necessarily a terrible thing, because if you work your butt off, get 12 OWLs, and work in a job that you want to work at, like, that's something you should be proud about. So I can't really get mad at him for being proud of himself.
Yeah, the one thing that I don't like about him, and I think a lot of people have this opinion, is that he really puts his ambitions before his family, and he also is blindsided by them. So first he's blindsided by how great he thinks his boss is. His boss isn't that great. I mean, he hid his son in his basement under the Imperius Curse with a house elf to take care of him. Like, I would not do that. I'd rather leave the guy in Azkaban if he's just going to be Imperious. I mean, which is worse, being Imperious or being in Azkaban? It's hard to tell which. But that's just, no matter what though, it's super shady. So his boss is super shady, and the fact that he fired his house elf when she was holding the wand to not get the younger son in trouble is just not okay. So he's blindsided by that, and then additionally, he's blindsided by the fact that he thinks Voldemort is not back anymore. So he leaves his family, and he's not there when George's ear gets blown off, right? He doesn't come back till later. And he uses his job at the ministry to his advantage, right? So when Scrimgeour wants to see Harry in the 6th book, he makes Percy pretend that he wants to see his family. Mrs. Weasley, of course, is fooled because she really misses her son, but everybody else isn't fooled, and the twins and Ginny throw food at him. And then also, here's the thing though, he was taking notes when Dumbledore left Hogwarts in the 5th book. He was in the elevator at the Ministry of Magic in the 7th book with Mr. Weasley when Harry was disguised, and he didn't say hello to his father either.
Yeah, and he was also present at Harry's big trial in Order of the Phoenix too, and he didn't do anything to help Harry in any way.
There's all of those things. He redeems himself in the end, but still, I can't really forgive him because he was gone for a big part of their lives. He missed the opening of the joke shop, and he basically missed everything with his family, like I said in book 7 when George's ear got blown off.
He also missed Bill and Fleur's wedding, which blows my mind.
So, I mean, while some people might forgive him, I just feel like it's super inexcusable, and family is really important to me, so that's why I have a huge beef with him about that.
No, I totally agree. I agree. And I feel like Percy, as much as we don't really like him, I feel like in a way we can kind of learn a lot from his character and like look at him and be like, these are the choices that he made. He didn't love his family and support them in the way that he should have. And Fred ended up dying in the Battle of Hogwarts, one of his brothers. And if he wouldn't have been the person that he was, abandoning his family, he could have been able to make more memories with Fred and just been there for his family in general. So I feel like we can learn a lot from Percy as to not make the mistakes he did and realize how important family really is.
He's definitely an example in that capacity. You really need to learn how to prioritize, and that's something that Percy didn't do very well.
Now we're going to move on to two fantabulous people we love very much, Fred and George Weasley.
Fred is arguably better, so there you go.
100%. Yeah. I feel super bad because I feel like with twins, like in the books, they're kind of seen as like one person because it's always like Fred and George did this. And Fred does have a bit more of a personality, but they're both very similar. They both like, being pranksters. They both got, similar grades and everything. So I kind of wish that on a general standpoint that JK would have made them different because I know twins and they are nothing alike. Like they look the same, but they're completely different people. So that's something that on JK's part I could have seen different. But positive for them, they're fantastic. They're funny. They're great older brothers to Harry. They're just the people who lighten the mood all the time.
Yeah, they're great at teasing people. They are really sneaky and stealthy. Like they had the Marauders map before Harry did. So that's a huge thing. Also, they knew what they wanted before they left Hogwarts. They're probably one of the smartest two people at Hogwarts because they knew what they were doing when they were leaving. They're like, we are making a joke shop. We're going to use our last year to see the demographics and sell the merchandise and see what people want. And like, that's super important. So they're really ambitious. And I think the reason why George gets a bad rap is because he doesn't have the best lines or the best actions. So JK basically said, okay, which name am I going to make do this? And then she always picked Fred. So that's the only difference between the two.
Yeah, it could have been because Fred's name came first in the alphabet. We're just going to go with Fred and then tag on George.
He did come first in the alphabet. Like, let's be real.
There's nothing really bad. I mean, the one negative-ish thing I can say about them is, yes, they are people to lighten the mood, but there's certain parts of the books where they kind of make jokes not at the right time. A big one coming to mind is the way they teased Ginny during Chamber of Secrets. Clearly, she was very distraught over everything. And teasing her by, telling Harry, like, oh, who could have killed next and stuff like that. Like, that just wasn't the right option, I feel. And there's other places in the books, too. But I feel like the times where they made jokes sometimes weren't the best choices. But then again, that's who they are as people. And some people just naturally make the choice like, oh, I'm gonna say something funny or make a joke to lighten the mood. Like, there are people like that. But I feel like to make them more rounded characters, having them not always resort to making jokes during these stressful and darker times would have made them stronger individuals, I think.
Yeah, and that's where they're not the smartest, but where they are really smart is not just with their merchandise, but with their mischief at Hogwarts. Like, they knew how far would be too far with their mischief. And the only time they went too far was when Umbridge was there, because she just ruined the whole experience for everybody.
We can't blame them there, though. I mean, come on. That was probably, like, the best part with the twins. The way they basically ruined Umbridge's whole time as headmistress. And they were just, like, doing everything they could to make her miserable.
Yeah, and they broke her door because the brooms flew through it. It's like the best part. They leave and there's like a hole in her door that's like that shape. And Harry walks by, he goes, "Oh, looks like it's repaired now." Like,
And the swamp, too. I love the swamp.
like, we could do a whole episode about Fred and George, and we definitely will someday. But let's move on to another amazing character, Ron. So we see Ron in all of the books, right? He's the main guy. He's got the red hair, which is also one reason why I love red hair, because I just always associate it with the Weasleys and, like, nice people. But Ron is definitely one of my favorites because he has the emotional range of a teaspoon. Ron is really loyal to Harry, and he basically tries to share everything he can with Harry. They're like the two friends that you would see sitting at school swapping, like, cookies. Like, I don't like this one, you can have this one. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I picture them.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ron is honestly the person who really orients Harry with the wizarding world. You know what I mean? Like, when they meet on the train, like, he's the one saying, like, "Oh, like, pictures don't move in Muggle world, like, our pictures do, and we have these kind of suites, and Dumbledore's the greatest headmaster Hogwarts has ever had," and teaching him about, like, how wizarding families live and everything else. I feel like Ron is the number one friend to Harry that shows him this is the magical world, whereas Hermione, who is Muggle born, it's kind of the opposite way for them, because, you know, Harry and Hermione teach Ron about the Muggle world. So I love Ron for being not like, he's not the friend who's like, "Are you serious? You didn't know that? Like, what's wrong with you?" Like, he's a person to, like, actually explain it. And he's fascinated by the difference between wizards and Muggles, and I love that.
I also like how at times he's the bumbling sidekick. So what comes to mind really is when he's keeper on the Quidditch team, because he just kind of fumbles a lot, but then he gets better. Or when he was really scared of spiders with Harry and he just kind of followed along. So you see that as well with him. But the fact that he stays with Harry through everything, like I said about how loyal he is just great.
Yeah, and one big thing that's a con for me, for Ron, is he's very jealous. And you can't really blame him because he has older brothers who made a reputation for themselves. And then Ron was just the younger brother, not very special as he thought. And being friends with Harry Potter wouldn't have been easy. And I'm just thinking about the whole thing with Victor Crumb and how he was jealous of him because he liked Hermione. And then the whole thing in Deathly Hallows when he left Harry in the tent because he thought that Harry and Hermione had feelings for each other when, you know, they love each other as brothers and sisters would. So that is a big flaw for him, but I think it is important to see him come back at the end because that really shows his growth as a person and realizing, like, you know, I was wrong. I can't let my emotions get in the way. And he does have a huge character arc, I think, and I love that about him.
Yeah, I agree. I think his jealousy is a big flaw of his. Another time he was jealous was when Harry actually got into the Triwizard Tournament. And he was like, "Why did you get in? Why didn't you share that with me? This, that, and the other." And he was also a little bit jealous of Harry when he had the Half-Blood Prince's book. But then when Harry shared some of the spells with him, he was fine with it. But there definitely is that with Ron. I also would like to say, too, that Ron is no stranger to mischief. And I like that he would follow Harry to the ends of the earth to cause trouble, which is awesome.
Yeah, he definitely picked up on some things from the twins.
I also like how Ron is able to admit when he's wrong. So when he was wrong about Harry wanting to be in the tournament, he apologized. When he came back to the tent, he apologized. And when he realized that Luna was actually pretty cool after all, after her commentary, he actually was really nice to her after that.
Yeah, and that's why I really like his character, because he has this flaw of jealousy and maybe not really giving people a 100% chance. But he is a person to take a step back and be like, oh, wait, let me reevaluate what I thought. And he made it a point to make his feelings and mistakes known. And I feel like that's really an admiring quality, because not many people are able to admit that they're wrong and openly express that.
I would also say, too, that one flaw that he does have is holding a grudge. So he really holds a grudge against Malfoy for what he said about his family, which, I mean, who wouldn't? But he holds the grudge against him, and then he follows Harry in his hatred of Snape, when really Snape doesn't do much to Ron except yell at him for being with Harry. So there's that too. But I do like that he's really helpful towards certain characters. Like, he really helped Neville in the DA.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to what you were saying about holding a grudge, like, I feel like we can see that with Crumb too, because when Victor came to Bill and Fleur's wedding, Ron wasn't that nice to him when Victor was being nice because he was invited by Fleur and he was coming to basically celebrate Ron's brother's special day, and Ron like wasn't happy about that because of the whole thing with Hermione. So he does have a hard time letting things go.
Also want to highlight the whole bumbling sidekick thing again one more time, because when he eats the cauldrons that girl gave Harry and he falls under that love potion, that's like a really funny part. And the whole thing with Lavender was just him being a boy, which was really hysterical too.
Yeah, and that whole thing with Lavender pretty much just happened because Ginny told Ron off about, not making out with anybody. So Ron kind of got, like, embarrassed and was like, well, I'm going to show her. So it does show there, too, that what people think and say about him really gets under his skin. And I feel like this can be a connection to being the youngest brother, because he's always trying to prove himself. And if somebody has a not so positive thought about him, he wants to prove them wrong. So you can't really blame him, but I feel like that can be a flaw too.
The last flaw that I'm going to say is that he is really embarrassed of his family sometimes with their money situation and the fact that his room is small. And we saw that in our last episode about the Burrow. So there's definitely really good things and some bad things about Ron, but like any main character, it's usually a mixed bag, right? I mean, if you're a secondary character, you're probably going to only have one flaw, but if you're a main character, you have multiple because it makes you more relatable. Okay, so let's move on to the youngest and one of the best Weasleys, Ginny.
The only girl in the family. Shout out to her for being the only girl in the family of 6 older brothers.
Yeah. So I would say that the best thing about Ginny is that she is tough and she's able to take things no matter what. So she was able to accept Harry leaving, even though it was hard. She was able to take it. She didn't really cry very much, or at least we didn't see her cry. Also, she's really tough because she went out and stole the brooms out of the broom shed and just practiced Quidditch by herself. So she doesn't let anybody stop her from doing what she wants, kind of like some of her brothers.
Something I love so much about Ginny is how accepting and caring she is of Neville. Because when we first meet Luna and Ginny is introducing them and Neville says he's nobody, Ginny tells him that he is worth a name, he's Neville Longbottom, he's not no one. And they also end up going to the Yule Ball together. And just throughout the whole rest of the series, like, Ginny is that person alongside Neville and Luna too, fighting to keep the DA alive. So Ginny is an amazing person, not only because of how accepting she is of Neville, but Luna too, because Luna is seen as the odd girl out. And Ginny's like, you know what? These are my friends. So don't say anything bad about them or I will literally hex you. Like, keep your mouth shut. These are my people. And she isn't bothered by what people think, and that's a great trait to have.
Yeah, you literally took the words right out of my mouth because Luna and Ginny's relationship is goals. Like, they're fantastic friends. I'm trying to think about other, because there's definitely another pro. Yeah.
She never gave up on Harry. That's one.
Yeah, so she never gave up on Harry, and she's not ashamed of who she is either. Unlike Ron, she's perfectly fine with whatever her family gives her. As the youngest, seeing that she gets more hand-me-downs than the rest of the Weasleys, she probably has more of a right to complain, but she never does, which is fantastic. And then just kind of a surface thing, I think Ginny is really pretty. Like, I would love to look like Ginny. She's really pretty. Oh, and she's great at Quidditch, which is so cool.
Yeah, she plays Chaser, like, awesome. And she also is good at seeking, too, because when Harry couldn't play in that match after the whole Sectum Semper thing, Ginny played Seeker and won the match. So they're literally made for each other, and I love how Ginny, despite, Harry not having feelings for her at the beginning, like, she never, like, gave up on that. And they ended up together and happy. So do you have any cons about Ginny?
The only con I would say I have about Ginny is that she's not good at naming things. So she's not good at naming Ron's owl. Like, who calls an owl Pigwidgeon? Who calls a pygmy puff Arnold? Like, she is not good at naming things.
This makes me think that Harry named their kids Albus, James, and Lily. Because they're basically named... Okay, so James and Lily were named after his parents, and Albus was named after Dumbledore. So there's no, like, Weasley names in their children. It's all, like, Harry's experiences and, like, family. It's great. I could you imagine? Ginny probably, like, rattled off a bunch of names, and Harry was like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. I'm sorry, honey, but no.
We were talking about how tough she was, but we forgot to mention that she was literally dueling Bellatrix at the end. So that's really cool. The fact that she was able to do that, and luckily, obviously, she didn't get killed, but that was pretty awesome. Also, like, she helped try to steal the Sword of Gryffindor from Snape's or Dumbledore's old office, which is pretty badass.
Yeah, she's, like, super fearless. You know what I mean? Like, even in Order, when they went to go rescue Sirius, and Harry was basically telling her, like, this has nothing to do with you. She was basically like, excuse me, I care about what happens to Sirius. And she helps to organize a whole thing so Harry could go into the office. And she went to the ministry too, despite, Harry not wanting her to. So she's fearless and she's bold and knows what she wants. And there's no telling her no because, she doesn't care if you tell her no. She's going to do it anyway.
Plus, like, she didn't even know Sirius very well at all. Like, she barely knew the guy. And she was like, let's go save him.
Yeah, and that also shows there that a spark of feelings for Harry because Sirius obviously meant a lot to Harry. And for Ginny to care so much, like, she cares because it matters to Harry. So if it matters to Harry, it matters to her.
I love her. Everybody should want to be Ginny Weasley.
So now that we went through all the Weasleys, are you ready to rank them?
Oh god, now I'm, you gotta give me a minute now, because now I'm, like, confused about what my rankings are, because, like, we had this really deep discussion, and now I'm kind of like...
I'm starting to switch mine up a little bit, too. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do.
Okay, my top has definitely changed. Okay, I'm ready.
You first.
No, you first.
Me first? Okay.
You first.
Do you want me to go, like, top to bottom or bottom to top?
Top to bottom, that's what I was gonna do.
My number one is Ron because I am the kind of person when I'm reading books to be drawn to characters with a lot of flaws because I'm a very flawed person and I like to see that in characters in books that I love. And Ron is the person that overcame his flaws. He has a very big character arc, and he is a great friend to Harry, and I love their friendship. I love how he embraces his flaws. And so, yeah, Ron's my number 1. Number 2 is Ginny, just because fantastic. Molly is my number 3, badass mom. My number 4 and 5 would be Fred and George. And then Arthur is 6, Charlie 7, above Bill. Because even though I feel like we see more of Bill, Charlie, I feel like, is super underrated, and he would be fantastic and even cooler than he is now if we would have saw more of him. So Charlie 7, Bill is 8, and wah, wah, wah. Percy's at the bottom because we don't like him. So that's my rank.
So my ranking is slightly different than yours, Demi. I was thinking of the characters that I would get along with the best. And my number 1 is Ginny, just because of all of the traits that we were talking about before. And I feel like she would be my best friend. Also, we'd probably get to see more of her flaws if she was part of the Golden Trio instead of Ron. My number 2 is Ron. My number 3 and 4 would be the twins. My number 5 would be Molly. My number 6 would be Charlie. My number 7 would be Bill. Number 8 would be Arthur. And number 9 would be Percy.
When you think about it, we were really close. Like, in general, we had the same Weasleys in our top, middle, and bottom. They were just switched around a little bit. This was really fun to rank the Weasleys and talk more about the best family ever.
So, if you're listening, please let us know what suggestions you have for bonus content. If you would like to be in a mini bonus episode, please let us know as well. And thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Bye!
Bye!